morning. I just wanted to say hello and do an updated video with regards to a blog post I made, because this came in from some viewer questions and things regarding the video I posted, which I'll link to, on flying ointments. And sort of what this is going to look at is some of the legal regulations and restrictions when it comes to certain entheogenic herbs, as we discussed in that video, and the ones in particular that I use in my flying ointments, such as belladonna, datura inoxia, European mandrake root, and fly agaric, as well as some other ones as well that you might not think would show up on that list. So what I wanted to look at is, and this is also international as well, because things do vary from country to country. And, you know, in the United States, which is where I'm located, you know, while a lot of things are heavily regulated by the FDA when it comes to medicinal herbs and aromatherapy things, there aren't any restrictions or regulations when it comes to the things in the nightshade family and fly agaric to some extent, which I'll get into later. So there's two classifications that I want to talk about, because I think sometimes this is where, especially when you're selling like witchcraft or any kind of spiritual products, is that you'll often see things classified as for curio only, which means for curiosity only. So it's sort of a little bit of a loophole in like, okay, well, I'm selling you the spell oil for protection. Does this guarantee that this oil is going to protect you from everything ever? No. You can't sue me because this oil doesn't protect you from, you know, the ghosts in your house or whatever. So it's a little bit of a protection thing there, but it also means that I'm not selling this as a medicinal protection thing, like taking this protects you from the flu or something like that. So it's a little bit of a distinction in between how products are sold. And you'll see a lot of occult products sold as curio only. And basically what that means is something that, okay, you could get this oil, put it on a candle and use it for magical purposes, or you could put it on your cute little altar or your curio shelf or whatever. What you do with it is up to you. You want to, you know, throw it at the wall? Fine, great. You can do that under that thing. It's not something that's medicinal, as in take this twice a day as prescribed by, you know, a physician or something like that. So that's where you see that classification coming up. And I have some of my notes with me because I'm terrible at remembering little things. So one of the things where I kind of have to sort of do a little bit of fancy footwork is being a professional aromatherapist and herbalist, and also someone who creates occult, witchcraft-oriented, for curio-only products, is that even when I'm selling something that's therapeutic, you have to be careful in the wording, because I think some things, like when it comes to the flying ointments, now, saying you're using something for astral travel or meditation, well, I'm not prescribing something to, you know, cure a headache, but if I'm selling it in a way, and I think I've maybe, you know, noted like can also help with, you know, sleep issues or pain relief, that's adding sort of a medicinal therapeutic quality to it. I think that's where a lot of the regulations and restrictions do come up, because I know I've run into that with completely separate products on Amazon and Etsy before, in that, you know, because the FDA so heavily regulates what you can and can't say about those types of products, and things get flagged, you know, really, really all the time and very easily, and sometimes for completely weird reasons. As in one of my videos, I discussed how they flagged all of my aromatherapy inhalers as vaping devices. I'm like, okay, some of these I make for pregnant women. Really? Would I be selling vaping devices to pregnant women for nausea? Really? You think? But I digress. I feel like I say, but I digress a lot, just to keep myself from going on really weird rants. So again, kind of going back to the specific restrictions. And I looked at a lot of other companies' websites that sell the similar types of products to see, what they said and, how they word their product descriptions and things like that. And, some list things a little bit more on like the medicinal side, some list them a little bit more on the spiritual side, some are a little bit of both. And some of them don't address anything with there being any kind of shipping issues or any of the regulations, when it comes to shipping things around the world, which sometimes we do. So currently, all of the plants and herbs that I use in my things are unregulated and therefore legal in the United States. The only exception is that certain Datura species are regulated in the states of Connecticut, Nevada, and Oklahoma because they're classified as a noxious weed. So that would pertain more to as if I was selling the seeds for them rather than a topical ointment, because you can't plant a flying ointment and magically grow Datura flowers. I'm sorry. I'm magical, but I'm not, not so much I can do about that. But so that's one thing. I mean, I don't think that's going to pertain to flying ointments and other places that sell like flower essences or elixirs or tinctures rather, or smoking blends that have those kinds of entheogenic herbs in it. Now, I'm excluding, the types of things that are like the components of ayahuasca are, considered, I don't know if it's Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 narcotics or something like that. So there are issues with some herbs and things like that in the country and legal restrictions around them. But with what I'm using, there aren't, mostly. So with the fly agaric, the Amanita muscaria, and other Amanitas, because there are other types, they are legal to use, cultivate, buy, possess, and distribute in the United States. The only exception is that if they're sold for consumption, that sellers must conform to the FDA regulated herbal supplement laws, which is a whole other thing. I don't do herbal supplements, so that's a whole other issue right there. So I don't sell things for consumption. Even if I was making flower essences or tinctures, there might be some issues there, but I'm not doing that right now. And I haven't really seen on any of the other websites of people who do make them, because they're more for, again, is it for curio only, or is it a medicinal product? There's not a big distinction there. And some websites will say, by law, I have to say this product is sold as curio only. Meaning they're kind of taking away I'm not selling this as a medicinal product. Sure, you can take, some henbane, flower essence for XYZ reason, but it's not to treat, chronic arthritis or something like that. So, Louisiana, however, is the only state where fly agaric mushrooms are illegal, but that's only when it's intended for human consumption. Otherwise, they're illegal to purchase, use, cultivate, and use otherwise. So another question that I had come up was, do these particular herbs show up on drug tests? Now, again, this is going to be specific to the United States because I do not have all the time in the world to look at what shows up on drug tests in every single country on the planet. There's a lot of countries. I did the best I could in a short amount of time. So, as we know, there are some herbal products and there are types of herbs and plants that can trigger false positives, such as like, I've heard people, I had a poppy seed bagel yesterday and I tested positive, for opiates. But again, that's consuming, eating, ingesting. So there shouldn't be any issues with using the flying ointments in that. But, if you do have a drug test coming up and it's within X amount of days, maybe don't, we use, I think there's one or two that have poppy seeds in the infusion, but again, it's infused, you're not directly eating them, so I don't think there would be an issue with that. Also things with, hemp derivatives can sometimes result in, a marijuana test false positive. As far as the fly agaric goes, and the same thing for even like the psilocybin mushrooms, there's really nothing in them that would show up on any type of standard or advanced drug test. So, and there's nothing in them that would trigger a false positive for anything else. And, you know, just to review, standard drug tests look for cannabinoids, cocaine, methamphetamines, or any kind of amphetamines, opiates, PCP. Advanced drug tests look for barbiturates, hydrocodone, quaaludes, benzodiazepines, methadone, propoxyphene, I'm not even sure what that is, MDMA, ecstasy, and alcohol. Now, there is a non-standard, very specialized drug test that can test for the tropane alkaloids like atropine and scopolamine and hycosamine that are in medicinal nightshades. But that's a very rare test that's only going to be used if poisoning is suspected. It's not something that's going to be used in any kind of standard or advanced drug test. It would be like, my kid ate a whole handful of, you know, berries from a belladonna tree, you know, to test for the toxicity for that. So that would be a very specialized circumstance in which that would be done. Canada has some very specific, they're very highly regulated with medicinal nightshades. And again, that kind of comes down to, are you selling a medicinal product or are you selling something for curio only? Which there's a lot of gray area when it comes to spiritual products. Like, can I prove astral travel is a real thing? You know, I don't know what the FDA, you know, has to say for that. Now, if I'm promoting it in a way that's like, there are some issues mostly pertaining to Etsy and Amazon, which I'll get to later, about, you know, selling products that mimic illegal drugs that would get you high. But that's something else. So, you know, in Canada, you're going to find those types of products are much more highly regulated. And that's for the flying ointments, essences, smoking blends, tinctures. Now, they can be legally purchased and used, but you have to schedule a private consultation with an herbalist and for either, you know, I don't know if it has to be a custom product tailored to your needs, or if it's, you'd be like, here's the off-the-shelf product that, you know, will fit your needs. I don't live in Canada, so I'm not familiar with all the Canadian rules about that. But again, you know, curio only. I think I'm going to make a move to make sure I note that on most of my things at this point. Because, you know, again, it is a different thing. You know, I'm not creating a flying ointment to treat chronic inflammation. It might help with that as a fringe benefit, but that's not the purpose of it. You know, like, I drink Diet Dr. Pepper a lot, or just caffeinated beverages, because it helps me from getting migraines all the time. Now, is my Diet Dr. Pepper a medicine because it keeps me from getting migraines? Not really, but it's a fringe benefit of drinking Diet Dr. Pepper. Not an endorsement for Diet Dr. Pepper, although it is the elixir of my life. And I've been having trouble finding it lately in the quarantine lockdown thing, and I'm very sad. But moving on. So, and also, oddly enough, the fly agaric mushrooms are not regulated or controlled by Canada, or in Canada, so those are fine. Now, moving across the Atlantic to Europe, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Iceland. So medicinal nightshades are pretty much unregulated in these countries because a lot of them are actually grown there. Like, I get the vast majority of my belladonna from Europe. So the only exception in Europe is Germany, where the nightshades are heavily regulated, and really they can't be legally imported without a medical prescription. But again, medicinal versus curio only. So you know, there's again, it's that kind of gray area. So, do I think you're going to get arrested for having a flying ointment in Germany without a prescription? I don't know. I don't think so. Because, you know, you could be like, it's for curio only, or, because again, I'm not selling them to, solve your insomnia. But, the amanitas, flag arc mushrooms, they're mostly legal in places, except for in the Netherlands, where it is illegal to buy, sell, or possess, and possessing amounts larger than 0.5 grams or dried or 5 grams fresh can lead to criminal charges. But again, I'm not selling you actual, flag arc mushrooms. It's just something that's used in there. So again, gray area. So, in the United Kingdom, it is illegal to produce, supply, or import amanitas under the Psychoactive Substance Act. I don't know more about it than that, but again, I think that pertains to the actual mushroom, whether it be dry or fresh, versus it used in a product. So I'm not entirely clear, and it's sometimes hard to Google to find very specific questions and not sure exactly who to ask. But if anyone watching this has any information on this, feel free to comment and let me know, and I will update, because I like having good information on things, because as I've been told by several viewers and things, they're like, yeah, there's really not a lot of great information on YouTube about flying ointments and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Because when I was first researching this, I was surprised. I was like, okay, well, sometimes you see trip reports on things, but, or maybe a product review here or there or something like that. But there's just not a lot of really good, quality information about flying ointments out there. A lot of it goes into the lore or the dangers and all of that. So, anyways, that's a thing. And going down under to Australia and New Zealand, I'm going to suspect Tasmania as well, since it's down there. Again, the nightshades are heavily regulated, and they can't be possessed or imported without a medical license or prescription. But again, the whole curio versus medicinal. Now, it's interesting in Australia that there's a chemical compound that is in flag arc mushrooms called muscimol, and that is considered to be a Schedule 9 prohibited substance. I guess their schedules are different down there, and is prohibited by law unless it's for scientific research, or teaching or training purposes. So I don't know how that would apply to it being used in a flying ointment or anything of that nature. So again, if you're from Australia or New Zealand and can get me some information on this, that'd be great. I did the best I could. I didn't find a lot of information as far as the rest of the world not mentioned for Central America, South America, the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. And these can vary from country to country. And I know, for instance, Damiana is illegal in Japan. And even if it's used in something like a perfume or an incense blend, it's still illegal for some reason. So there's there's obviously a lot of countries in this world, and they all have different policies and legal and illegal, and whether people pay attention to them or not are entirely different circumstances. So, again, if you are from one of these places and want to know anything and can let me know, or if you want me to research and look more, let me know, and I will definitely look into it. Because, some countries have weird things. And then we go to our two favorite countries in the world, Etsy and Amazon, who make up their own freaking laws. So their restrictions are vague at best when it comes to certain herbs and plants and products that contain them. As I discovered since Etsy removed the majority of my flying ointments from the platform for policy violations. So, to reiterate, Etsy currently prohibits the sale of the following substances: any illegal controlled substances, certain plants, or herbs, which hallucinogenic substances, or from which hallucinogenic substances can be extruded, or that have toxic properties. Now, this does include the medicinal nightshades and fly agaric mushrooms and any products that are deemed to be presented as drug-like substances. So I guess technically they could look at, my product descriptions of things and about, using them for like trance states, for astral travel and things like that as being a drug-like substance. But, and other plants and herbs fall into these categories as well. Henceforth, this is why they removed my flying ointments from Etsy. I never got around to putting them on Amazon because I figured Amazon had some weird issues to begin with. If I had to spend 3 months trying to explain to them that an aromatherapy inhaler wasn't a vaping device and was unsuccessful in that, I was like, I'm just not even going to bother with them. But I did look into Amazon and Amazon Handmade, and they also prohibit the sale of controlled substances and certain types of plants and herbs. Like, they restrict the sale of Jimson weed, which is Datura stramonium, but they don't seem to restrict any other of the Daturas. So, and any of like the poppy derivatives, and, similar to Etsy, any products they deem to be presented as drug-like substances. So I would assume under that, they would consider my flying ointments to be drug-like substances, even though they are not meant to get you high and trip balls. But anyways, so they do prohibit the fly agaric, amanitas, and some other herbs they have determined to classify as synthetic cannabinoids, or those that mimic substances to get you high. And of those, Damiana and Clipdaga, lion's tail, and I use that a lot in my flying ointments, are among that. And there's a ton of other herbs and plants. Now, the interesting thing about that is they say you can't sell Damiana on Amazon, but if you go on Amazon and search for Damiana, there's a lot of Damiana on Amazon. Because, yeah, I had an incense blend back in the fall or summer or something they took down because it had Damiana in it. Now, I have other products on Amazon. Hi, Amazon, if you're watching, you can move along, that have Damiana in it that haven't been taken down yet. I don't know. But anyways, but a lot of these, on both Amazon and Etsy, these are very loosely policed policies because, while, as I mentioned with Etsy, they're talking about, not selling belladonna, henbane, the nightshades and stuff. You can buy seeds for them though. So wouldn't that technically be a prohibited item? One would think, but I've had products moved from both for various reasons, some of which have been ludicrous, as I mentioned, with the aromatherapy inhalers. But, yeah, so I just wanted to kind of throw this supplemental piece out there on flying ointments. I'm trying to get, do a little more. I have my vlog, which I do kind of just my random conversational content, and then I have the more educational pieces that I do that are a little bit longer for my YouTube channel. So another question I get, I'm going to tack it on to the end of this, is sometimes people ask me about the recommended dosage for the flying ointments. And honestly, I don't really suggest a recommended dosage because it's going to depend on a couple things. One, the recommended dosage for someone who is 5'1" and weighs 100 pounds is going to be different than someone who is 6'3" and weighs 250 pounds. So some of that's going to be up to your discretion and also what you want to do with it. Like, that's why I say, apply, wait half an hour, see how you feel, and apply again. Now, sometimes, depending on what I'm doing, I'll put it on once and I'm good. Sometimes I'll put it on 3 or 4 times. I usually wait like 20 minutes to a half an hour between applications and things like that. But, for me, it just depends on, how deep I want to go into my astral traveling explorations or ritual work or spell work or things like that I'm doing. So that's all I really, that's my, because when you get into recommended dosages, it also kind of portrays it as a medicine versus a curio. So, or something that's used for spiritual purposes. So I do steer clear of that a little bit, just, you know, kind of to protect myself and the products and things like that. Because obviously Etsy had a problem with it. But anyways, if you do have questions about flying ointments, about any of the entheogenic herbs, or just anything, feel free to leave a comment. You know, if you're connected with me elsewhere, email me, ask me any questions that you have. I'm more than happy to answer it or research it. I have a ton of books all over the place that I can reference. So I'm more than happy to do the work. I love reading and researching. I'm a big old nerd for that stuff. But anyways, thank you once again to my Patreon supporters. Don't forget to click like and subscribe, and I will see you guys again later. Bye!